again from the 2016 ECRA conference in Prague. I'm here with Axel Bruns. Welcome, Mr. Bruns.
Thank you.
You just did a panel called Theoretizing Journalism Beyond the Crisis, where you talked about some new emerging forms of journalism. Can you tell us what those are, and if you are optimistic about them upholding to the standards of the more traditional media?
Well, journalism is certainly changing. I think that's very obvious. We have the decline of many mainstream forms of journalism. We've got the emergence of new forms, and that includes everything from sites like BuzzFeed and Vice News and so on that are really, I guess, publishing news that's designed to be shareable directly and to be viral on social media, all the way through to platforms like the one that I talked about today, which is The Conversation. And that's a platform that is designed to publish work by academics, by scholars, and has journalists essentially helping these scholars to publish or to write their stories in a form that is immediately accessible also to people who aren't in the field. So we're seeing a number of different new models that are emerging for journalism, new format models, new stylistic models, new models of organizing the journalistic process as well. And that's, I think, something to be optimistic about to some extent. It's certainly a sign that there is light beyond the crisis as well. So we have a decline of conventional forms, but we also have through this disruption, a lot of new things that are emerging. Where all of this ends up, that I think will be the big question. What the balance in the end will be, and whether these new forms can pick up some of the slack that essentially exists now with these other more traditional forms declining. That's going to be a big question. And ultimately also what that means for issues like trust and objectivity in journalism, for the way that the public overall informs itself, and for, I guess, for the democratic role of journalism, that still remains to be seen. And there are reasons there both to be optimistic as well as more pessimistic with the sort of the post-factual types of politics that have started to emerge as well.
Later we are going to talk about social media. Everybody realizes the importance of social media now. Yeah. But do you think there are still some areas in which they are not used to their full potential? Absolutely.
We're seeing some really divergent uses of social media in journalism still. There are some, and often it's at the level of the individual journalists. There are some journalists who are very, very active and very, very effective in using social media to not only promote their stories, but engage with audiences, to source information for stories, to help curate, I guess, the range of information that is present in social media around particular issues and topics and events as well. So some journalists are very, very proactive and very, very successful in doing this. Others are a lot more reluctant still and are essentially just pushing out their own stories, essentially broadcasting the fact that they have published new stories on their home sites. And I think, again, we're not at a point yet where it's quite clear exactly what the kind of the right balance is between these, perhaps. It is also very different from country to country, and that's the other big observation, that in some countries social media play a much bigger role already, partly also because social media platforms themselves are much more widely used by the general public. In other countries, social media still are very much a niche part of the journalistic process.
Okay, so last question is, what can we expect from you in the future? Are you working on something exciting?
At the moment, I'm actually writing a new book on journalism and social media. So these questions are very much at the right time. I published a book 10 years ago called Gatewatching, which looked at citizen journalism, and that was quite successful at the time, and I think a lot of the ideas that are in that are still relevant. But at the same time, of course, in those 10 years, we've had a real change in platforms. Both Facebook and Twitter have come along. Conventional citizen journalism in the form of news blogging and so on has declined or has been normalized into journalistic processes. So the way that journalism is done, that citizen journalism is done, the way that audiences engage with the news as well has massively changed over these 10 years. So for me, this new book really will be essentially a sequel to what I did then, to pick up the story and say, well, what's happened over these last 10 years and where are things going in the future?
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Check out more of our videos from the 2016 ECRA conference and stay tuned for the updates.